Good morning, everybody. It is Schuyler Callihan here on Between the Ears, and with me this morning I've got Christopher Hall, and today we're going to do how WVU beats Pitt. And yes, first of all, we're going to make sure we don't maybe bounce the ball off of our chest and into a hand of a Pitt Panther secondary guy and run in for a pick six. Maybe that's a good start, but maybe it's also going for it on fourth and inches. Who knows? Anyways, that was last year's game. Let's move to this year's game. Two games in the books for both these teams. One game we really can't take much out of, with Pitt playing Wofford and West Virginia beating up on Duquesne this past week. But West Virginia's only game so far against a formidable opponent, Penn State, they kind of hung in there for a while. 14-7 at the half. They hung around. Eventually, Penn State went on to win 38-15, really 31-15. Meanwhile, Pitt loses 27-21 at home against Cincinnati, and they were favorites in that game. So that's kind of the tale of these two teams heading into week 3 of the Backyard Brawl. But Chris, before we just jump right into the keys, initial thoughts on this Pitt team, and is it really a winnable game, do you think, for the Mountaineers this year?
Yeah, they've had to replace a lot. They have to replace their 1,000-yard rusher, the 1,000-yard receiver, plus their quarterback, freshman starting at offensive guard. So they've had a slow start offensively. Obviously, like you said, against Wofford, can't really tell. But last week against Cincinnati, they gave up 5 sacks. So I think Jurkovic, I think that's how you pronounce his name.
Jurkovic, we'll just call him
It's
Phil.
something. Big Phil. He is a big kid at 6'5". He wasn't accurate, obviously 10 of 32, couldn't hit the deep ball, was way off on the deep ball. And he would also struggle with time. Cincinnati does have an All-American up front on the defensive line. So it's still too early to see Pitt, see how really good Pitt is. They haven't had a strong rushing attack either. Defense has been okay so far. They kind of got bullied against Cincinnati at over 200-yard rushing. So there's a lot Pitt has to kind of overcome early in the year. And for them, really, it could click at any moment. It's not like they're short on talent in the backfield. They return their second lead in rushing and Roger Hammond Jr., and they've got some talent on the outside with Dejon Reynolds, Kanata Mumfield, Bub Means. So they've got talent. It just hasn't really clicked for them yet, and which isn't a surprise considering all the pieces they had to replace last year.
So how does West Virginia beat Pitt? I'll start with this. Really isn't how you beat them, but this is just a kind of more of a note. Everyone's talked about Garrett Green and West Virginia in their downfield passing game, right? And how they don't have enough of it. They haven't shown much of it. Well, on the flip side, Pitt doesn't throw the ball downfield either. They have really struggled, actually, in their 2 games. West Virginia, if you want to go back to that Penn State game, they averaged 11.1 yards per pass. In the Duquesne game, I think it was like 9.6. For Pitt, even against Wofford, they only threw it 8.6 yards per pass. In the Cincinnati game, obviously, you can imagine it'd be much less with how much lack of success they had, 5.6 yards per pass. So this is a team that's not really willing to take many shots downfield, which for West Virginia, that's a really good thing because your secondary has not looked all that great in these first 2 games. But I think you have to almost bait them, which is kind of a scary thing because, again, how bad that secondary has been. But if you can bait them into some long shots down the field, you have Aubrey Burks for a reason. He's going to be able to be that eraser in the back end. He can make plays on the ball. I think you want to bait them, but not allow it to be something that kills you in this game. So that's, again, kind of more of a note more than anything. But I think really for Pitt in this passing game, what you're going to have to look out for is the tight end, Gavin Bartholomew. He hasn't been featured a ton in these 2 games and really in the past, but he has shown flashes that he can be a mismatch problem. And especially for this defense, I don't really know who's going to really line up across from him. So if they can take Gavin Bartholomew out of this game and force Phil Jurkovic again to go to his perimeter guys, that is an advantage to West Virginia, in my opinion.
Yeah, I knew you were going to bring up Bartholomew. he, he leads the team in receiving yards actually with 118. He's got a touchdown under his belt this season.
Was it 5 catches? Yeah.
5 catches. Their first leading receiver has 7. They've spread the ball around. Kind of at the beginning, they're trying to find their way. They lost their leading receiver from a year ago. So yeah, Gavin Bartholomew 100% is a problem. 6'5", he's huge. Phil's 6'5", big Phil. He's
Big
6'5", so
Phil.
he should be able to see him over the middle. So yeah, he's definitely going to be a problem. And I think you still have to uh, hold the guys on the outside accountable. Those are big receivers on the outside. Bud Mean 6'2", and Dejon Reynolds 6'2". So uh, those are big targets, and they're gonna go down the sideline. They're going to take those shots deep. So I've been wanting to see them play man more and do a little bit of press coverage. This might be the time where they can do a little press coverage. Um, Staff said that they haven't shown everything and they didn't want to show everything on film. I know that's not a Neil Brown exclusive thing. That's coaches around the country, but I absolutely hate that motto because if you run 50 different plays and they have to prepare for 50 different plays, what's it matter at that point? You can build off the success of those plays that you've had success on that you can, a little misdirection off that key. So we'll have to see. I think that is 100%. You just saw Cincinnati hold them to 10 of 32. What they're going to be obviously pumped to correct that wrong last weekend. They're going to be show that they do have a passing game. So that's going to be a big test. That secondary has not proven that they can stop anybody so far this year. Duquesne, um, they had success. I know it's still Duquesne, but they still had success. So we'll
Yep.
see. That pass defense is 100% the keys of the game. Can they just take? But that off they have some experience on that offensive line. Can they bring enough pressure? Again, can they press and hold their coverage long enough for that defensive front to get in there? Can they even get in there? Again, Cincinnati does have an All-American up there to disrupt the passing game. West Virginia does it right now. Mike Lockhart's been great to start the season. But yes, I think the big key for the defense, can the secondary cover long enough for the pass rush, get to the quarterback?
So I think on the offensive side, you really want to start fast. And again, I know that sounds about as cliche as hell. I mean, obviously you want to start fast, but when you look at how the Penn State game went, you moved the ball, but you really didn't do much with it. Okay. And you scored 7 points to half. The way the game started last week against Duquesne, you cannot have that be repeated against Pitt here, or else you may find yourself down 10-0 early in this one, or 14-3 or something like that. But you've got to start fast. And I think a lot of that goes more so towards Garrett Green. And that's more so of my second point here is Garrett Green playing with some composure, because Neil talked about it in his press conference on Monday that sometimes he's a little too jacked up and you don't really want to mess with it a whole bunch. But when you have this type of a game, you have this crazy atmosphere that we're all expecting, he's going to be jacked up times 10. And we've already seen what he looks like against Duquesne and Penn State and those environments, too, obviously on the opposite ends of the spectrum. But this one's going to be where it's an electric atmosphere with the crowd behind his back. He's going to feed off of that, but he's got to be able to make sure he's not amping himself up too much to where he's missing easy throws that are layups and dunks. Because if you miss those layups, it's going to be hard to really move the ball down the field. And that's what a lot of this West Virginia passing game is based off of, is hitting some of those easy throws, those bubbles, those flats, those screens, those tunnels, to really open up some of those things downfield, because they haven't really been able to establish that downfield passing game. So as long as Garrett Green stays within himself, I think that's a big part in starting out fast. And if you can get out to a 1 or 2 touchdown lead on Pitt, you're in a really good situation because you know how to run the football.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with the Mountaineer defense still and kind of go off years. Complementary football is going to be big. Um, West Virginia offense, I don't think necessarily have to start off fast, but they need to win the field position battle, and that's where the defense comes in. Pitt hasn't had a strong rushing attack to start the season. You can't allow them to dictate that at the beginning of the game and move the ball to midfield to even punt it, let alone go down and score. So I think that's one of the biggest keys. Don't allow them to start feeling comfortable in the running game. They haven't thus far. Make them have to, as cliche as it sounds, work third and longs.
Yep.
That's something that they haven't had success with this year. So I think that's one of the big keys is stop the rushing game. It shouldn't be an issue with them. West Virginia has played the run fairly strong so far this season. Tackling hasn't really been an issue so far this season. So that has to continue and play complementary football because Pitt on the other side as well. That defense is going to be fired up, ready for the challenge to stop Garrett Green. And West Virginia hasn't had, to your point, hasn't had strong starts on offense. So that's a big key for the defense. When they get opportunities to get off on third downs early in the game, they need to get off the field and get the offense and win that field position battle.
Yeah, for me, the last one would probably be just really mixing the picture up. I think for Big Phil, as we call him here, because he's he's really struggled, and you just watched a few clips before we hopped on here, but he misses some easy throws, and he kind of gets confused a little bit. And I got a little bit of a scouting report as we were starting to tape this from one of our guys at SI, but it's that he makes the easy throws hard at times, and he also gets confused on where to go with the ball. And if the more complex you give him, or the more complex the picture is for him, the more difficult it is. And it sounds like, well, no, duh, it should be, but with him, he really struggles when it gets outside of the obvious coverage assumptions. I should say maybe it's third and 10, you think, oh, well, they're just going to drop 8 and rush 3. Well, if you show some sort of disguised blitz and you're actually bringing 5 and only dropping 6, that's where he kind of gets messed up. So if you get him also out of the pocket, I think is a struggle for him on to throw the ball on the run or on the move. That's something where this athleticism and that speed of West Virginia's defense can really be a big factor, because I don't think he's as accurate on the move as he is in the pocket. He is a stand-up pocket passer. So you got to muddy the picture up for him, give him some different looks, bring some different pressures and some of those creeper pressures. But I don't know. I'm not. I wouldn't think that West Virginia is scared of Big Phil, but if you can get to the quarterback, make your presence be felt. Whether it's Sean Martin, Eddie Vestorinen, Mike Lockhart, somebody press that pocket, get those balls out quicker. I mean, you're talking about 4 sacks in 2 games, and you had Duquesne on the schedule in one of those 2 games. You got to get to the quarterback more. And I don't think it was not a factor that they hadn't been getting to the quarterback. They just haven't been finishing plays. There's been a lot of crumbs left out there. They got to get that fixed this week and finish some of those plays.
For me on offense, they have to have some explosives. They got to get some plays downfield. Hudson Millett last week had those big plays against Duquesne. Can that carry over this week? Devin Carter should be back this week as well. So those two are going to have to make big plays downfield. Cortez Braham had a drop. Preston Fox had easy drop. Fox came back with a touchdown catch. That's twice that Fox. I mean, one at Penn State
Yeah.
with Andelaby was a tough ass to get, but those are the plays that win games. They're probably going to have to make some of those plays to beat Pitt. With that as well, I'm sure Pitt's going to bring a lot of pressure and probably force Garrett Green to beat them with his arm. He's got to stay patient, know where his receivers are going to be, just like at Penn State. Cole Taylor was open multiple times. He's just got to anticipate where he's going to be and throw it. They practice it. He just got to remain patient, have trust in his receivers, and deliver the ball. But back to what you kind of said, where he's too hyped. He did that at Penn State, where he was going through fast through his progressions and dumping it down. He's again just stay patient, move the ball downfield, and got to have some complimentary running game. I know Jaheim White had a big game last week, but really need a big game from C.J. Donaldson. This is where he had a breakout game, obviously opener last year. He struggled last week against Duquesne. Thought he was a little too patient behind the line of scrimmage, but he still has it. Like when he puts his foot into the ground, squares his shoulders, he's carrying defenders down the field. He's just going to have to take what they give him, and then eventually they're going to wear down. He will 100% wear a weak defense down, and he'll have an opportunity to break a big one. Just going to have to see that 100% effort on every carry. So basically, have a good strong run game, make the plays downfield when the opportunity rises, and Garrett Green just got to be patient staying in the pocket. I know it's a tough ask when you got 300-pound defensive linemen barreling down at you, but that's kind of life of the quarterback. They're 100% going to bring pressure. They got two guys. Here's another name for you, Bangali Kamara. I hope I pronounced his name right. You know, him and which is Hayes, defensive end. Uh, they both have combined 4 sacks so far this season. Both lead the team, so they're definitely going to be bringing pressure off the edge. Got 300-pound nose guard up front. That's going to wreak havoc. A guy right in his face with a little guy like Green is going to be tough to see over that line. So be patient up front. TJ's got to run tough. Win the field possession battle early, and you should start to be able to chip away at them.
I'll throw one more bonus one in here. It's not the deep one, but just the special teams. You talked about the field position. We don't know what the status of Oliver Straw is going to be this week, so that's going to be something we'll kind of watch and monitor throughout the week. Obviously,
Lechtel's been good. Lechtel's been
right.
solid. He has definitely been solid. So you like that specialty of Straw, but Lechtel's been definitely more than serviceable back there, so it shouldn't be an issue.
Right. So, I mean, Layton's had a tremendous fall camp. But again, when you get into a game, who knows what that's going to look like? It might be a completely different thing when you get under the lights in prime time against a rival, but who knows? We'll monitor that. We'll have Neil Brown will probably provide some sort of an update, even if it's not one. He'll at least say it's not. There's no update on Thursday during his coach's show, and then we may get something before the game as well. So that's going to do it for us here today. Be sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube at Mountaineers Now. And don't forget, we still got more shows coming this week. We've got later tonight in the gun, Big 12 picks. And then we're also going to have the Walkthrough Game Day show tomorrow with Eugene and myself breaking down the Backyard Brawl keys to the game with more so Gene's thoughts, since I already kind of gave mine. We're going to do our picks and everything else as well. And then, Chris, we'll be back here on Friday for Best Bets. So we'll see how that goes.
Terrible. It's been I got to hope my October is much better than September.
Yeah.
It's been awful.
Fade Chris at the moment.
Hard.
Fade Chris.
Fade hard.
So that'll do it for us here today. We got to get out of here. Again, hit subscribe on YouTube to be to continue to support our page. We can thank you enough. For Christopher Hall, I'm Schuyler. We'll see you guys back here tomorrow on the Walkthrough Game Day Show.